and I didn't have my mic on. Can you hear me? Okay, thank you. If you can hear me, please put it on the chat. Oh, that's great. So I've been listening to lives, and they spoke about, not putting on your mic. And I thought, I won't do that. And here I did. So welcome to this live. Thanks for dropping in. It's really great to have so many people on. And yeah, thank you for being here. This is your midweek reboot, and it's time just to relax. There's no pressure, and take in some tips that I'll be providing you with. My name's Mayan, by the way, and thank you for joining. So, have you started your work? Have you started work as yet? Did your work week begin already? I started on Thursday. Drop it in the chats. How are you feeling about work thus far? I've been engaging with people at work, and it seems that people are positive. And there's New Year's resolutions, how they're going to do things differently. It's good that they come in with new energy, but we want to do too much. And we have these new routines, these new habits and new goals that we set for ourselves. And that's really what we want to talk about today. This is the mistake most professionals make in January. We do too much and we don't pace ourselves, and that leads to burnout in February and in March. So um, I think it's important that we pace ourselves. So I've got a comment over here as well. Unfortunately, the work has begun. So, but it's hard to start again. And remember last week we said ease into it. You've moved from slow mode, which is the holidays, to now working again. And it's an attack on your senses. So try and ease back into work. Look at what are one or two things that you need to do, must do. And then slowly your mind and body will catch up that it's back to work as well. So to the person that dropped the comment, thank you so much for that. Yes, it's hard to start again, but just start a little at a time and you'll get there. So the pressure, so this evening, I chatted to my brother. He also started work in on Monday, and he said he can't wait for the weekend to come. And I mentioned to him, I'm not living for the weekends anymore. I did that last year, and your year just flies by and you just live for the weekend. So 5 days is missed out because you're living just for the Saturday and the Sunday. And I just mentioned to him as well that I am trying to do things differently and be more intentional this year about how I spend my weekdays as well. Because we're just wishing away our lives, aren't we? So what I'm trying to do, and it's me being mindful as well of what brings me joy. Time with my dog brings me joy. Even if I am at work, what is one, two things that I'm enjoying and that will make a difference. So I need to look at work differently. It's not about, just having deliverables. It's about how am I making a difference? So be mindful of that. And yes, have a way of also just resetting your energy. If it's a walk or whatever the case might be, identify what gives you energy. So that's my intention for this year, is to live each day fully, And irrespective of my mindset or how positive or negative or my mood, or I need to be just more intentional about it. And that's what I'm trying to do differently this year. So many people are back at work. What I've noticed is that January pressure is building up. There's more deadlines already. There's also the meetings are piling up as well. So the pressure is definitely on. And the mistake that we make is we want to do too much goals, routines, expectations as well. And in this session, I want to just talk about that a little. I realize I didn't share my screen, so I'm going to share my screen. And I think you can see my screen. Hi, Habib. Thanks for joining as well. Um, let's talk about productivity without pressure. It's so important for us to look at productivity. And yes, it's important for us to be productive, but we have control over that pressure. Productivity traditionally relies on urgency. We need to work long hours. We are pushing through fatigue. It works short term, but it's not sustainable. And that leads to burnout. So, traditional productivity leads to burnout. But if we look at productivity without pressure, now that is different. There's clarity to what you're doing. You're working with intention. There's structure, and there's also what's very important, which is boundaries. There's limits, and you set those limits. You still get important work done. So you're not shirking. You're getting the job done, whatever you're responsible for, you getting it done, but you're doing it differently and you calling the shots. You don't use stress as fuel. You manage your stress. And if you bring down the pressure, then you're managing your stress. The goal isn't just the output, it's about sustainable progress. The question is, why does traditional time management fail? So, time management, it automatically assumes that all the hours are equal. It takes away from, it doesn't take into consideration your mental fatigue and decision load. So the 8 hours is assumed to be the same. And traditional time management, it rewards busyness instead of meaningful progress. So it looks at how much you worked, how long you've worked, and not the outcome of what you delivered. So you can have your calendar with just filled up, but with no real progress. I remember when I was on this one project, I'll start at 6 a.m. or 7 a.m. with meetings right up to 7 p.m. So there's a whole host of meetings, but that's me contributing or listening, but I was not productive because at the end of the day, I'd have to go home and work on my deliverables. So doing that for 9 months burnt me out. And I also developed a thyroid problem because it was unsustainable. So one needs to look at this traditional time management. How are you setting yourself up? Is your calendar or your diary full, but you're not really getting real work done? So the question to you is, do you usually blame time or energy when your day feels unproductive? Do you blame the time or your energy when your day feels unproductive? You can put it into the chats. Okay, I've got a response over here that it's both the time as well as energy. That's what makes you blame when you're unproductive. Thank you for the response. I think burnout is an energy problem and not a time problem. And here's why: your energy fluctuates throughout the day. So it's not really the time, but it's the energy that you have and you put into your work. So fatigue is often mislabeled as laziness, but it's sustainable productivity starts with protecting your energy. You need to protect your energy in order to prevent burnout and in order to have sustainable productivity. If you don't have the energy, then you won't be able to do what you need to do. I remember I used to wake up at about 4 o'clock in the morning and go to gym by 5 o'clock, get back, and I'd be absolutely exhausted. And then I need to start the workday. So that didn't work for me because I used to expend all my energy when I rose and it was early in the morning. By the time I hit work, I'm exhausted. So I did not have the right amount of energy to put into my work. And when my energy depleted, then I'd have brain fog, I'd be tired, I want to sleep, I can't concentrate. Therefore, last year I changed my routine, my workout routine. I would rather work out during my lunch break or in the evening or go for a walk in the evening as opposed to doing it early in the morning because it drained my energy. So we need to identify what prevents us from not conserving our energy. I identified what was not conserving my energy and I changed it around. We need to move from time based to energy based productivity. So stop asking how much time you have. Start asking what your energy can support. And this reduces the frustration and self blame. As I mentioned as well, I realized where I was spending my energy and it was not working for me. In fact, I was watching a video by a YouTuber called Nisha. She's quite popular and she does content on finances. And she mentioned as well in terms of her working out, she would work out at the end of the day because a lot of her energy was spent early in the morning just exercising, and then she would have to do her real job or even content creation. So what she did was she moved it to where she has less energy, and that's where when she worked out and when she exercised, it gave her more energy as well. So you need to see, where are you spending your energy and when is your energy at its peak, and what activities are you doing during those peak energy periods. So your energy is not flat. There's such a thing as your energy curve. And your energy follows a personal rhythm. I know when I was younger, I would be able to wake up earlier. I had so much energy in the morning. I'd like to front load everything, get things done in the morning because by the time it's evening, I have less energy. I feel as if I'm dead by 9 o'clock in the evening. But as I'm getting older, I see also my rhythm is changing and I'm learning to adapt to that new rhythm. So you need to, and many people, they might have clarity earlier in the day. Not everyone, but many people as well would have. And it depends as well how you set yourself up at night. Do you sleep at the right time? Get enough sleep so that in the morning you feel refreshed. Some people are at their best later in the day. What matters is knowing your pattern. When are your energy peaks and when are your energy dips? And you need to manage yourself accordingly. And productivity problems usually comes from us not managing our natural rhythm. And it's not from a lack of discipline. It's from not managing that energy accordingly. We still want to push, but it's counterproductive. So when you consistently ignore your energy pattern, work feels heavier and it also leads to burnout. So, my question to you is, when do you feel more mentally clear? Is it earlier or later in the day? You can drop it in the chat below as well. Just want to change a setting with my chats. When do you feel more mentally clear? Earlier or later in the day? I've got a response over here later in the day, especially the evening. So, yes, you need to see what is of importance that will get you that you would need to get done in the evening. So work according to your energy. And if you I don't really believe in the 5 a.m. club or the 4 a.m. club because I think we all have different patterns and different rhythms. So if you feel more rested waking up at 7 a.m., then you should do that and then structure your day accordingly. What do you think of that? Do you agree with me, disagree? Um, Drop it in the chats. And for those online as well, if you have any questions or any input, please feel free to drop your questions in the chat and I'll take that as I'm going along. I've got a response, agree completely. I didn't work well on somebody else's idea of a good schedule. So, and that's true. We all need to create our own schedules based on our energy as well. And if you have the control, you should, and if you have that control and influence, you should set up your meetings when you have medium energy. So your deep thinking work can go when you have high energy. Your When you have medium energy, then that can go towards meetings. So match your work to your energy. The high energy would be the thinking. When you're analyzing, you're planning, you're writing. Do that when you have high energy. Medium energy, That's meetings and when you're collaborating. Low energy is when you're doing admin and routine tasks. So what it means working with energy is you need to understand yourself. When you have high energy, this is what I'm going to do. When I have medium energy, okay, that's if I have the control and influence over that, then that's when the meetings should be set for. That's when collaboration happens. And yes, admin, we need to do that. There's routine tasks. Do that don't when you don't have the energy to think, and you can just do it on autopilot. So plan your day, your weeks accordingly. And when you do that as well, it automatically brings down your stress. I'd like to put forward the focused 45s. And what I mean by that is you for your deep work, you set aside 45 minutes with one clear outcome. So if you've got a report to write, a document to analyze, numbers to analyze, that's deep work. You've got something to write. Then you set aside 45 minutes with that clear outcome. I'm doing the first part, the summary of this report. I'm analyzing the first section of this document. So you're very specific, intentional as to what you're doing and what the outcome is. Don't say, I'm writing a report. Can you see that's quite broad? You can say, I am editing this document, the first section of this document in the 45-minute block. So deep work does not need hours, but you can put in that time block, and it allows you to work in that time space. So it's like crunch time. You know, when you have to do something urgently and you're working against the clock? Well, you're working against the clock with this deep work. And you must stop when the block ends. When your timer goes, what I've started doing as well is putting my alarm on for, if it's a 35-minute, 45-minute block, and I start working in that time slot. And once I'm done and the alarm goes off, then I stop. But I push as much as possible to get things done within that 45-minute block. If you've got too much time, then you will procrastinate over it. And even if you've got the energy, stop, because you're building trust with yourself. If you don't stop, your mind's going to say, I can't trust you. You're not going to. So the next time you want to do a 45-minute block, your mind will give you the negative of that you never do stop. So keep to that 45-minute block, take a little break, and then you can start another 45-minute block. But what it does as well is it'll build momentum, and you would have started from one small thing. How do you eat an elephant? One piece at a time. And this task or activity might seem so large, but when you break it down to 45 minutes, then it's more achievable. My question to you in the chats: when you sit down to work, do you usually have a clear finish in mind, or does the work just stretch? Do you have an outcome when you sit down? Are you just working at it blindly? Do you have a clear finish in mind? You can drop it in the chats. So you're going to ask me, can short focus sessions really make a difference? And yes, that's a fair question. And 45 minutes sounds too short. But as I said, if you doing it with focus, you are concentrating you double down on what you put forth, then yes, those focus sessions really does make a difference because you're chipping at the activity and you're getting it done. Also, there's cognitive overload. If you have too many open items and you're busy with everything as opposed to one thing, then you're all over the place. The focused sessions allow you to get things done and your brain can fully focus, and then you stop. And by this, remember what we're saying as well. It's not about just time management, it's about energy management. You're protecting your energy. In those blocks, you're doing what you need to do, and then you stop. And when you're doing that 45-minute focused sessions, you're actually doing deep work and you're getting much more done than if you had to do it for hours and that report stays open, and it also builds your stress levels because you're not really getting to it. Instead, you're going onto your emails, you're talking to a colleague. But if you put 45 minutes and stick to that session, then you accomplish much more. I'd like to introduce the 331 rule. So, we identified that yes, when there's pressure, there's problems, and you want to push harder. And that doesn't help because it leads to burnout. This structure of the 331 rule, which I'm going to explain to you now, is a way of putting a structure in place that creates containment. And the 331 rule is just basically and simply this: three priorities for the week, followed by three meetings each day, followed by one rest block. So let me go into that. So, three priorities for the week. Then you're going to ask me, but Mayan, yeah, we don't just have three priorities for the week. And yes, that's true. You have important stuff to do, but priorities are, what are those things that's going to move the needle, that's going to reduce friction, that if you remove it, and you get it done now, will reduce the stress for next week. So it means that you need to plan ahead. What are those three things that will reduce your stress, that needs to be done, and that will move the needle and reduce friction? Those are the three things that you're going to concentrate on in the week that comes up. And remember, important does not mean it's a priority. So, yes, there's other things that will be there in the day, but those three things are non negotiable. You have to get it done. So, if it reduces future load, if it closes an open loop, and if it stabilizes something, then that's a priority. So I'll repeat it again. If it reduces future load, it closes an open loop, and if it stabilizes something, then that is a priority. Then I said three meetings a day, three meetings maximum per day. And here again, you're going to say there's much more meetings than three meetings maximum per day. I've started looking at what meetings do I really need to be at. Then there's the fear of missing out, FOMO. You want to be at every meeting, you want to know everything. And on my one project, I did that. I needed to be at every meeting, I needed to know everything in order to lead my team. But it's me taking away from my team. So I realized I need to also allow my team members to be present at certain meetings. Then we can align and they can give me feedback where required. So if you suffer from FOMO, realize that you don't need to be everywhere. That's going to lead to your burnout. Identify the three real meetings, important meetings you need to be at. Then, and that's three meetings per day, maximum. And I should say, where possible. Then there's one protected recharge block. And by that, I mean it's a recovery block. You need to also give yourself time to do nothing or time that allows you to reset. So, a walk allows you to reset. How about putting off or closing your computer for 10 minutes and taking a break? Um, you don't need to be busy all the time. So for me, after I do something and I feel that I've worked a good block, then my reset is going and seeing my dog or giving a cuddle. That's if I'm working from home. My If I'm at work, it might be going to the water cooler, and having a glass of water. What will be able to reset you? So identify what your reset block is. As I'm speaking, I'm thinking about my brother, because what he does, he's a recharge block. He takes his lunch break every day, and he'll ensure that, and he works remotely, so he'll take his lunch break, and during that lunch break he'll make sure he doesn't eat at his desk. So he'll make his lunch. What he also does is he'll play 10 to 15 minutes of a game. He's a gamer, so he'll play 10 to 15 minutes. It recharges him. He might even have a nap, and within that 1 hour, he takes it religiously, but it recharges him to do his work for the rest of the day. And he's a programmer. Coding is quite intensive. So he's learned how to reset his energy so that he has energy for the second part of the day. So you need to identify what your recharge block is. And when I say recharge block, don't think I'm saying take the rest of the afternoon off. It can be short, but it must provide you with a time to recharge. As I also speak as well, and I talk about my brother, I had the bad habit of having my lunch at my desk, especially when I was at the office, and that does not allow you to recharge. So it's important, if you're having your lunch at your desk in front of your computer, that you're not allowing yourself to reset your energy. The 331 rule is the three priorities per week, three meetings per day, and one recharge block. So think about that. See if that works for you. And I'm going to pop another question in. Which part of this feels hardest to imagine right now? Is it the priorities, the meetings, or the recovery? So for yourself, which part would be the hardest to do right now? You can drop it into the chats, and I'm just looking at some of the responses. Okay. me the priority for, so I've got a response over here. It's priorities. I need to train myself to look at the priorities. So what I said at the beginning, what's important doesn't mean it's a priority. The priority is it will reduce future load, it closes an open loop, and it stabilizes something. Now that will qualify as a priority. So try and use those criteria when determining what's your priority, because everything important doesn't equal to a priority. You're going to ask me, what if my role is meeting heavy? And that's a valid question. What if my role is meeting heavy, but here you said we should look at having only being part of only 3 meetings a day, a maximum of 3 meetings. The 3-3-1 rule is not all or nothing. Do all of it or nothing. You need to take what works for you. So if you have a role that's meeting heavy, lots of meetings, that might not be in your control. So that's something that you just have to continue. But where you do have influence, that's what you need to do. um, you can also look at how many meetings you attend. Do you have to attend all of it? Remember, I used the example of my one project, and I used to attend everything together with my team members. So, also, that was showing lack of trust. That's what I realized as well. I needed to allow them to attend. So, I don't need to attend all the meetings. Identify what meetings you need to attend. What is your role in those meetings? Are you going to present? Are you key to the decisions? Or are you a bystander taking in? And if there's somebody else that's in the meeting that can do that, why should all team members be in one meeting? And that's one of the things that I did last year as well when I conducted a focus group with one of my clients, is created the understanding that if there's team members that's representing the team in a meeting, not all team members need to be there, because one of the problems that this client had is that everybody were at the same meeting. There's no time to actually get to your work, and that created fatigue and burnout. So what I put forward to that team is, look at who needs to be over there. It's important to align as a team. And if not everybody needs to be there, if person X is over there, then person Y doesn't need to be over there as well. So that alignment, that communication with your team members, that's so important. And you need to see how you protect yourself and your energy around these meetings, because meetings can really sap your energy. So be mindful of which meetings you attend, what's your role on those meetings, and if others can attend, then allow them to attend, but align and communicate. So the impact of the 3-3-1 rule, it reduces overwhelm. So for the person that in the chats, priorities are an issue. It will reduce overwhelm because you'll identify what is priority, and you can plan your energy around that. It also gives you clearer focus. Once you know what's going to move the needle, what's going to reduce friction, then you can focus. Together with that 45-minute blocks that you work with, that will help you with your focus. There's more consistent energy because you're working in line with your energy, you conserving energy. Remember, I said it's containment. The 331 rule allows for containment. And also, there's less resentment at work. So here's another story. I was I was facilitating a session last year. This team had to do and deliver on a project. They had to work on the project and pulled in for 8 hours. So for the full workday, that created burnout. So when I facilitated the session, this is what they mentioned to me, that they were part of this project. All of them were pulled in for the entire day, and they were only able to do their real business as usual work in the evenings. And over a number of weeks and a number of months, they felt it. They were burning out. So when I facilitated the session, what I put forward to them, and it might seem simple, but sometimes it's for an outsider to make these recommendations as well. I told them to engage with their project leads, and 4 hours can be spent on the project because that was important, but also 4 hours of the day can be allocated to business as usual. This was done, and it made such a big difference because they were able to now split their day on two of the priorities, the business as usual as well as their project. And here again, it's about communicating. So look at where where your energy is, where you can ensure that you're containing your energy. Like this recommendation to this team, it might be simple, but they didn't see it at the time. And it's about communicating. They weren't confident to communicate about it until they hit the burnout, which was a bit too late. But it helped to reset and for them to improve their ways of work. Because what was also happening in that team is that it was creating resentment. They started hating work. They dreaded coming to work, and they weren't giving their best to the project as well. So the impact is, if you do the 331, it leads to less resentment at work. If there's any questions, please put it into the chat. We are coming to the end. I think I've got 3 more slides before I end. Start where you are. So I'm putting forward the 45-minute block. I put forward the 331 rule. The 331 rule is three priorities, three priorities for the week, 3 meetings maximum for the day where possible, and 1 recharge block. So I put that forward to you. But here, and I did say as well, the 331 rule is not all or nothing. So don't change everything in your week overnight. Here, I'm putting forward ideas that you can take on board. Try the focused 45 minutes or one boundary, be it your priorities, your meetings, or the recharge block. Treat it as a 1 week experiment. This works, this doesn't work. I'm going to use this, I'm going to leave that. So see what works for you. My question to you is, what's one small thing you might try next week? Just one. And if you want to put it into the chat, please do. If you don't, then just think about it. What's one small thing you might try next week? Then I've Okay. What's one small thing you might try next week? Okay. So the response to that is identify my priorities. That's wonderful. And I've got a question over here as well. Give an example of how to identify priorities. As I mentioned, it's important. It's everything that's important doesn't mean it equates to being a priority. A priority is something that will reduce the load if you do it this week rather than next week. And it will keep recurring until you close that loop. So that's a priority that you need to close out. And if if it's going to be recurring, then it's going to add to your stress. And if so, you need to identify what would be the thing that will move the needle from a work perspective. If you've got a report that needs to be done, don't leave it until it's due, because that's just going to stress you out. That would be a priority for you to start working on, because it's recurring, it's an open loop. So how are you going to close it out? And then you bring it into this week, create deep focus blocks around that 45-minute blocks, and you start chipping at it. Small focused sessions to start chipping at it. So then by next week, you would have done quite a bit of that report, as opposed to starting it only next week. And then the stress just develops because it's close to deadline. I hope that helped. Okay. And yes, you can be effective without being exhausted. And that's the reason why I started these lives in January. It's about us looking at the way we work, because we can still be effective, but we should set ourselves up so that we don't get exhausted, which then leads to burnout. And productivity does not need to feel draining. Okay, we don't need to push all the time. And the culture of busy equals productivity, we should kill that. If you can work, be productive and do something in a shorter space of time, then do that. Remember, calm work is still real work. You just need to have structures in place, have a pattern in place, work towards the your energy. When you have peak energy, do that deep focus work. And that structure and intent, that's how you protect your energy. Be intentional on how you protect your energy. And what you do in most weeks will compound over the month, 2 months, 3 months, because that will determine whether when you burn out, if you burn out, and if you can be sustainable across the year. If you build good patterns, work in accordance with your energy, then you can actually have a sustainable high energy year. So you don't need to change everything all at once, but be mindful. Take stock of your energy. It's not about time management, but it's about energy management. And one small shift, which is done consistently, is enough. So also don't put that extra burden on yourself. Are there any other questions? Thanks. That's good. I got a response that the response to the question was helpful. I'm glad. And this brings me to the last part of this live. 1 hour really goes. Okay, it's 50 minutes. And if there's any questions, you can still put it into the chat. If there's one idea or one nugget that you took out from this live, that's good. Hold on to that. And as I said, it's not all or nothing. Take what works, experiment, and look at your energy, see how you're going to make it work for you. Sometimes you can't just push, and you have low energy, and it's also a loss of time because you're pushing deep focus work when you have low energy, and then even the output of that is not good enough. You'll have to maybe redo it. So you rather work during your high energy times and plan your day, plan your week in accordance. Are there any other questions? I'm just checking the chat. There's no other questions. Okay. It's the 14th of Jan. It's mid-month. We've got another 2 weeks before we close this month. January can feel heavy, and you just need to look at how are you going to conserve your energy. Remember, it does not need to be a sprint this year. You need to create that stability. The things that you put into place creates the stability, and intensity can come later. So therefore, I'm putting forward, let's look at our patterns, look at how we utilize energy, look at our peaks in terms of energy, plan our days accordingly, and always remember that you matter, you're important. And what if you are whole and you have high energy, you can give off your best both professionally and personally as well. So I hope I've given you something to think about. Thank you so much for joining me on this live. Remember, I will host a live every Wednesday at 8 p.m. South African time. So I'm not sure where you are in the world, what time that equates to, but I hope you can join me for future sessions where we just look at ideas of how we can be productive, but also conserve energy and prevent ourselves from burning out. I've also got videos that I put out as well with ideas that you can look at and contemplate and consider taking on board. But thank you so much for joining me. Have a wonderful, productive week further, a productive week without pressure. Take care. Bye.